somewhere around about end of summer 2023, at the ripe old age of 61, I made a decision to start taking motorcycle riding lessons. Right now I can't even remember why I started, but maybe a late midlife crisis, I don't know. But yeah, I decided to take motorcycle lessons. I found an instructor fairly close by, and I planned to do lessons after work. So I'd be up at 6, I'd work until 4, 5 o'clock, and then I'd do lessons from 6 until 8, sometimes 8 until 10. Now, I live in the Netherlands, but I guess it's a similar system to other places. Part of the lessons involve being off-road in a car park or some enclosed area and riding round cones and things, learning manoeuvrability and how to control the bike. And then there's the on-road part, obviously learning roadcraft and riding in traffic and so. And then there's also a theory element where it's an exam situation and you're answering questions on road safety, road laws and rules and things. I started off pretty timidly, I guess. Obviously we started off-road in the car park going around the cones. And I did have some issues. The slow slalom, for one, I had a bit of trouble with, and tight U-turns. I dropped the bike a couple of times, but they have crash bars. That's what they're learner bikes for. And we began in between the cone lessons. We would ride from the instructor's place to the cone training place, so I was also getting some on-road training as well. Somehow, surprisingly to me, I managed to pass the cones exam. I didn't think I'd done particularly well, but the guy was happy, so that was done with, and I could carry on concentrating on the roadcraft. And while I was doing that, I was studying online and in books for the theory exam, which I was doing in Dutch. So I added a little extra hurdle to it. But we carried on with the road training, and that wasn't going great. I think maybe I was a little bit too timid. Things like tight bends I struggled with, and being on the highway at 120, 130 kilometers an hour with no fairing or whatever was quite new to me. So I was making quite slow progress, I would say. And then the instructor went on holidays for a few weeks, and it was now rolling into early October. I had a test planned for the end of October, so that was something to work towards. And in between my cones and waiting for this test, I managed somehow to pass the theory exam. So I found that I was quite proud of that, considering that I'd done it in Dutch. So yeah, full steam ahead, 2-hour lessons, and get this exam done. So I went to the exam centre on the allotted day, and I took the exam, and I failed. I was driving too defensively. I was giving way when I shouldn't have done. I was staying on the inside lane on the highway when I should have moved out. I stayed out too long in the outside lane when I should have moved in. I was too close to the vehicles in front. I was not looking too far ahead. And the verdict from the examiner was, you ride like a car driver and not like a motorcyclist. Obviously this was a great disappointment. I mean, I knew I wasn't fantastic, but I wasn't prepared to be told I was as bad as I obviously was. So, what to do? Give up and lose the money I'd invested already, or invest even more money and continue? So, I decided to continue. It's now getting on to November. It's getting dark, it's getting cold, and it's getting wet. Now I'm doing these lessons after work, so I've already done a full day's work. I'm tired, it's cold, wet, concentration is difficult after 8 hours of work, so I did not find it enjoyable. Some nights it was so cold, even with winter gloves on, that I couldn't even feel my fingers. I didn't enjoy one single second of these lessons, not 1 second of it. But a new test date was agreed for the first week of December, which at this time of the year a lot of riders have got their bikes nicely tucked away in the garage for winter. But not us. No, we're out in the wind and the rain and the cold and the dark. So then comes the day of the test, and for some reason the weather decided to lend a helping hand. Bright sunny day, no rain, no wind. I'd already decided if I failed this time, then I was going to give up, and maybe this took the pressure off. The ride was very relaxed. The guy who went out before me, who passed his test, was away for 45 minutes or so. So when after 30 minutes of my test, the examiner said, head back to the test centre, I was obviously quite worried. But a little smile from the instructor as I got off the bike gave me hope. And indeed, I had passed. Not even a comment on anything in which I could improve. Even the instructor later said, where did that ride come from? Now it was a matter of a bike. I wasn't going to start riding in December. The memory of those cold, wet, dark lessons still fresh in my mind. But obviously I'd been doing some online research and having a look at what I liked and what I thought would be appropriate. And I was quite drawn to a more cruiser style of machine. And I'd seen a nice Suzuki Intruder that I liked. Then one day my brother calls me from England. He said, check out Honda ST1300 Pan-European. So I looked online, checked it out. He said, I've got one, it's yours if you want it. Well, I'd looked at every review, I watched every video I could find on YouTube, and the general consensus was it's the best bike ever, of its type of course. And plans were made to bring it over from the UK in early March. So one day my brother turns up with a van containing this ST1300, and he also brought his Triumph Scrambler with him. And we spent a week riding around with me getting used to riding again. Now I'm only a short guy, so I found it a bit of a struggle manoeuvring the bike. Once it was moving, beautiful, smooth, comfortable, no problem. But stopping at traffic lights and parking the thing up at the end of the ride, I found that a big struggle. But it was a lovely bike. The bike went to a guy I knew who's a Harley dealer who offered to take care of the importing, taking it for tests and whatever. The headlight needed changing from an English one to a European one so that the lights shone in the right direction. And some aftermarket lights that my brother had fitted had to be removed. No idea why. But by the middle of May, I had the bike back. Then began the real work of learning to ride. May, June, into early July, riding to work, 2-3 times a week. But by that early July, I'd begun to realise that I was struggling with this. Not the riding, but just the manoeuvring, putting it away at the evening. I was a bit nervous coming into stops and things. Every time I was at a traffic light, I'm on my tiptoes almost. Very difficult for me to flat foot it. And if I did, leaning over even a slight amount gave me the feeling that I was going to drop it. So I looked around. I was offered another Intruder, as it happens. I borrowed it for the day, and I would have bought it, but by the time I'd made my mind up, it was already sold. Now convinced that I wanted a cruiser of some kind, I then looked at Moto Guzzi, California. I drove up an hour to go and see it in, unfortunately, the worst day of the year probably for riding. Gale force 8 and 9, an hour on the highway, giving the bike a test ride, and then an hour back in this gale force 8-9, and it started raining. Was not an enjoyable trip by any means. But I made an offer on the Moto Guzzi, including a trade-in for the Honda, but the guy turned it down. He wanted a little bit too much money. Then, just by looking around online, I found the bike which I eventually bought a couple of weeks ago. 2003 Triumph Bonneville Speedmaster. Easy to ride, easy to manoeuvre. It fits my style so much better than the Sports Tourer. A totally different beast than the Pan-European. It's not as fast, it's not as powerful, it's not as smooth. But it suits me and I like it. So that's where I am right now. I'm riding the Speedmaster. The Pan-European is up for sale. And we'll see how things go. In future videos, I'll keep you updated on the experiences of an old new biker. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Ride safe, ride often. Goodbye.